like the whole like lockdown situation has either kind of brought people a lot closer, or it's maybe made a few people drift apart. And I think it's not a personal kind of situation at all, but I think for a lot of people that I know, I think it's kind of really affected them in a way where I guess it's just a lot of added pressure with spending sort of an intense amount of time with another person. But yeah, I wanted to kind of like summarize that whole, what I've just said, my rant there, in like one kind of like sentence. And it kind of felt, when I was writing it with Jamie in Commons, we kind of felt like sleepwalking was the best way of putting that message across, but within sort of a like one single phrase. So yeah, that's the kind of the message that we're kind of trying to put out there.
Yeah. And also I read that something that you said, it's about being in a relationship where you sort of you're so happy with each other, but you're just walking around and it's that feeling. I mean, for me, there's another word I guess could be complacency, but obviously sleepwalking's, it sounds a lot nicer. You know, you're with somebody, but you can be complacent.
It's a thing, I think.
You know, imagine if you call the song "Complacency."
I mean, that's fine for the next one. I'm with the next single. But yeah, I think like the whole idea of sort of maybe coexisting with somebody else, and like you said, it's not necessarily that you're unhappy, but I think sometimes you can realise that you're not as happy as maybe you thought you were, due to, I don't know, I think these times are like a test of character, aren't they? I think you don't know, you know, we're all kind of, you know, especially people that live in London, we're all very busy and we're all very active. And I think until you kind of take a minute to stop, I don't think you ever kind of realise really where you're at. And I think even, you know, not so much relationship wise for me, but I think even myself, I've realised that, you know, sort of different things that I actually really enjoy doing, maybe that aren't musical. And it's just, I don't know, it's just it's a strange time, but it's a test of character. And I think that's the kind of the message really with this, that you're, you know, the whole idea of two people maybe realising that it's not quite what they thought it was.
I mean, how it must have been hard then, because you lived in London, aren't you? Is that right?
Yeah, in London, yeah.
So how's, you know, how's it been then for you? Because obviously I know I'm in obviously South Wales, so it's quite rural where I live. But for you being in the city like London, how has it been for you in this lockdown the last 6 months?
Well, I think the actual situation in terms of the lockdown has been, for me personally, it's been amazing because so I signed my record deal a year ago, and a part of kind of, well, for me, I spent like a long time doing sort of like your function bands and pub gigs, you know, to two people at the back who like thought I was shit, you know, like the kind of classic kind of like grafting period. And when I won the Glastonbury's Emerging Artist and then signed my record deal, I think there's a lot of kind of like, for me, like original music wasn't something that I've been writing for years, like since I was, you know, 16, but I hadn't found or even tried to explore like what my sound on record was. I mean, at all, really. And so that's a bit of a strange thing, because I didn't realise that was a thing. I thought we just, you know, oh, I know what I sound like. I know how this song goes. It's going to sound exactly the same when you record it. It's not true at all. So, you know, like, not at all. So you record it and you think, actually, that sounds rubbish. Like, that's not what I thought it was gonna, like how it was gonna translate at all. And so that kind of like development stage, which I've kind of had a bit of time to work on, like my sound, which I don't think I would have had without the lockdown. So even though the first week was a little bit, you know, like it was difficult. I think, overall, like I've been personally really grateful for it. But I know that a lot of people have struggled. So I think it's a tough time in general for people, especially in London. It's a bit strange, you know, there's a lot of kind of panic, and I understand that. But I think for me, it's come at maybe the perfect time.
I was about to say that.
Because well, just having that, you know, 5 minutes to think about, like I was saying, you know, well, why doesn't this sound very good, and how do I make it sound good, and what identifies me as Marie White and nobody else is kind of, I didn't think that those questions I didn't think that was a kind of part of the artist thing. I just, you know, because I haven't come from a world where I've been pursuing a record deal for years or kind of pursuing my original music. I've just been writing for myself. So yeah, so I think for me, it's come at a great time. And now we're kind of at a point where we found this sound and it's all really exciting. But I don't know, maybe trying to find your sound along with doing, you know, loads of writing sessions and loads of gigs and loads of meetings would have been a lot tougher. And maybe I wouldn't have been in this position. So I guess I'm trying to be a bit more positive about it. It's been quite good for me personally, I think.
And would you say you found your identity now with the music then?
What's that? Sorry, mate, say that again.
Would you say you found your identity now with the music style? You.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think kind of, well, I think hopefully me as a person is represented in the songs rather than before they were kind of just the song and this is how I felt and this is what I was writing about. But I think in terms of production, I've kind of learned that there is a way actually of conveying like a sense of personality within production, which I didn't know how to, you know, I've always sort of thought, oh, I love that and I like this and I like loads of colourful stuff and whatever and I write with a lot of heart, but actually it's really weird because you think that like people are just going to get it, but actually unless you're conveying that emotion in the song and in the production, people of course they won't get it. And even me as the listener, I was thinking, well, I don't, you know, I feel nothing when I'm listening to this, and why not? So I think I've learned kind of how to convey the emotion that I'm, you know, a lot of my songs are incredibly personal, and it's sort of like you want people to know that it means something to you because it's come, you know, from deep within, but you need to find a way of putting that across. And I think hopefully I found a way of putting that emotion across and like kind of incorporating some sort of personality traits and strange, you know, I'm obviously aesthetically a bit bizarre, so I think I'm not in denial or anything. I do know. So hopefully, you know, I've kind of found a way of making the music interesting, but I've also kind of kept the core songwriting there, which is what I really like. You know, the kind of, it came from a piano and a vocal or a guitar and a vocal, but then there's some interesting ideas in there which hopefully represent me a little bit more as a person. So yeah, so I hopefully I think I found what I like in my sound anyway. So it's just more about, you know, whether or not other people like it, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess it's a fine line, isn't it? Because, you know, what you, like you just said, what you like and what you think would work, and then you go into the studio and it doesn't sound right, and then you've got to get the emotion into the song. But I think, like you just said, you've had 6 months of being under some lockdown, like we all are, to find that and sort of perfect, you know, your style and what know will work. But if I could just ask, I mean, also that's just me going off on a tangent, I guess, but which of your songs means the most to you then, like that you've written or, you know, or co-written?
That's a good question. I don't know. Well, I suppose, well, in terms of, I mean, there are lots of, I mean, I'm at a stage where I've only got a few songs out at the moment. Yeah. So there are, I mean, in terms of things that are out, there's only a couple, but I mean, there's a new song called Found It, which I'm really excited about actually, which hopefully will be coming out sort of early next year.
Okay.
I think like I spent a lot of time writing about negative experiences, which a lot of people do, and that's kind of the only thing I ever thought that I could write about, because it's sort of like you feel unhappy and you write and it feels like it means so much to you in the moment.
Yeah.
What I've learned is the really frustrating thing about all of those songs is that once you don't feel like that anymore, the song doesn't mean as much to you, and that's frustrating, because then a song can be absolutely amazing, but actually you think, oh, I don't care about that anymore, and actually that person who I thought I was really upset about, oh, I don't like you anymore. So you know, and then all of a sudden you get this sort of like this feeling within you where it's like, I don't even like the song anymore, and then you sort of like, and it's like it's actually really frustrating. But there's a song called Found It that I've recently written, and it's a really sort of like a positive song about me and my girlfriend, and sort of like how we met and how we were friends for years, and how she was sort of like right there and I didn't realise, and everybody else sort of thought, oh, you should be together, and I was like, don't be so, you know, don't be ridiculous. But yeah, so I've kind of, I think that song I'm really excited about it, and I think it's kind of like, in terms of meaningful, like I said, where I thought all of these really negative songs were meaningful, actually they weren't. They were just helping me overcome how I was feeling at the time.
Yeah.
Whereas
Yeah.
this one, I think, is more of a kind of, actually, this is how I genuinely feel about something that's positive.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so hopefully, like next time we speak, we haven't broken up. Well, I mean, we're not going. You know,
That was my next. That was going to be my next thing.
It'll be a bit depressing, wouldn't it, if I was like, I hate that song now. Don't write about it. But yeah, I think that to me, at the moment, in terms of what I've written over the last 8 or 9 years, that feels to me at the moment like the most kind of meaningful thing that I've written.
Yeah.
Because I think it's, for once, it's actually meaningful and positive.
Yeah.
Which is, I'm sure you get lots of writers sort of speaking to you about how it's difficult to write a happy song.
Very many.
And I just hate saying it because I think it's like probably the most oversaid cliche that's ever. But it's true. But hopefully the fact that I've kind of managed to break
the mold.
Yeah. So hopefully that can be like an ongoing. They'd just be happy songs from now on.
It's true though. I mean, I've spoken to many writers, songwriters, singers, many. I mean, gosh, too many to mention, big names. And they all tell me about this. Other songwriters always about bad experiences, and and it's parts of their life, like you just said. It might be about relationship was bad at the time, that may have turned into something better, or they now detest that person even more, so they don't want to sing the song. And it's like you say, you've got to sort of, I wouldn't. Not time it right, but I don't know. I think you've got to have some positive songs out there and the negative, so it's keeping the balance there. But yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing that one anyway when it comes out.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, I'm excited about that one. So yeah.
Can I ask you then about, obviously you did Glastonbury last year when you won to play on was it the Puma stage, wasn't it? Was it the Puma stage?
No, well, I think Michael Eavis accidentally said that in his
right.
in the end bit, but we were very lucky because we played 5 stages.
Yeah.
So we did what did we do? We did the Rabbit Hole, Greenpeace, the acoustic stage, BBC Introducing, which was amazing, and like the VIP Interstage.
Okay.
So that's kind of what we got as a result of winning the competition, which was just to play every day was just amazing. So so that they're the stages that we played.
And what was it like to to find out you won that? I mean, it's obviously it's a huge honor, and you must have been flabbergasted. But what how did it feel? To
I don't know. Well, I still feel a bit sort of in shock now about it because I think, because it was a weird one really, because when I entered, the idea was I was at quite early stages of kind of, I mean, I don't even know if I had any conversations with record labels at that point. I was sort of like, I was just kind of doing my gigs. I think where I'd got to when I entered the competition is that I had started pursuing a career properly in my original material.
Yeah.
So rather than kind of thinking, oh, this is going to be a hobby or I'll stick to doing the function gigs, I think I'd decided by that point, which was I think we entered in like February, that I was actually going to try and do this with my original project.
Yeah.
And the idea of entering really is that we just recorded a song called Out of Time. And the idea was that I'd enter my track. I knew that thousands of people were going to enter.
Yeah.
And I also knew that the people that were on the panel were very sort of specialists in their genre. So the people that were judging me were kind of like singer-songwriters, or they'd been in that industry. And then the people that were judging like the rap music were people that made beats. And it was very sort of, I thought, if I enter, somebody might hear my track that can help my journey. So that was the idea. The idea was to enter, hopefully somebody would listen and they would hear it. And then maybe I would it would create like a platform for me moving forward.
Yeah.
It wasn't really with the intention of, I should enter, there's every chance that I might win. That was not the mindset at all.
Okay.
So I was shortlisted to the top. I think it's like they did the top 90. And I thought, Jesus, like this is like, and that's still like a long list, but I thought, God, like I've actually kind of like, it's obviously been heard and it's been recognized and they obviously like it. And again, the expectation was still no further. And then I was shortlisted to the top 8. And from that point, you perform in like you have to go to like a final. So you perform in the final and then they pick the winner based off of your live performance rather than the record that you've sent in.
Right.
So the only thing that I felt positive about was the fact that I really enjoyed performing live, and sort of hope that that's kind of where I shine a little bit more in like a live setting.
Yeah.
But equally, again, I think the whole thing was just quite overwhelming. I was on first. I was just playing like as a duo. There was a lot of bands or people that had sort of like really great like backing tracks and stuff like that. And I felt a bit out of my depth, to be honest.
Yeah.
So I think that's why I feel so overwhelmed, because I didn't have any expectation. And even when we were kind of at the competition, I just thought that I'm happy to be here amongst all of these really talented people. And then I won, which was, I don't know, it's just really weird. I just remember sort of like there was the guy that came second was a rapper called Che Lingo, and he was literally amazing. And he was on last, and like I felt like I was at his gig rather than like a competition.
Okay.
And me and my parents and my manager at the time was sort of like maybe I could like place top 3, like as in like he's won.
Yeah.
Maybe I could. Maybe there's a chance that I could come second or third. It was a conversation as if like there was already another winner.
Yeah.
So like I don't know. It's just it was a massive shock, and it was amazing. Just that people of that caliber, which were on the panel, kind of believe in the project. I think that's what's most overwhelming. You've got like Hugh Stevens from Radio 1, who's played everybody, for years, kind of saying, I actually think that you're quite good, which is like, for me, that's like a massive kind of like, it's a boost in terms of like self-belief, because I think as an artist, we all suffer from a little bit of insecurity. Sometimes. So it was it was really overwhelming. I still can't believe it really, but it was an amazing kind of, I'm just glad that I entered. And I think it shows you as well that these competitions that we almost like give this bad stigma to for probably no reason. There's a lot of stereotype around, either it's a fix or you've got no chance of winning, there's too many people. Well, actually that's a load of rubbish, because I was just a 23-year-old at the time from Hastings that was like entering my track that I'd only just recorded like the day before.
Jeez, okay.
So, like it was that kind of sporadic. It was like, we've just recorded this, I really like it, there's a competition, we should have a go. And that's, so I think it does show you that actually there's a lot of support for kind of like new unsigned talent out there.
Yeah, and obviously that led to the signing with Decca, wasn't it, and Universal? Yeah,
so they put their, so we had obviously the 5 gigs, and I was like an absolute nervous wreck because I knew all of these labels were coming. So I just was like pacing around like I was just out of the right state, to be honest. I was having a meltdown. I just remember I was having just an utter meltdown. It was like 35 degrees as well. And I was on all of these gigs, I knew they were being filmed, and like I thought, I can't get my legs out or anything because I haven't looking a bit skinny at the moment. I was sort of like doing all of these gigs in like a foot, it was like 35 degrees, and I was in like these outfits, like like trousers and like jackets and stuff. Like, I was just a state, basically, man. I was just an absolute state. But the only saving grace is that just before the first gig on the Thursday at the Rabbit Hole, Decca had put their offer in.
Okay.
I found that out I think my manager actually told me, because I think I was irritating her. I was like pacing around.
Yeah.
And she was like, just sit down. And I was like, I can't, like, I'm just having a meltdown. Just leave me alone for a minute.
Yeah.
She was like, look, I was going to wait until the end of the gig to tell you this, but like Decca have just put in an offer. So just calm yourself down. So that was amazing.
Yeah.
And even though I had lots of other, so Universal at this point hadn't put their offer in or anything, but Decca had.
Yeah.
And I knew that they were going to be there, and lots of other labels were kind of there, and I had lots of other meetings. But I think I'm quite a loyal person, and I think for me, it was really important that like I went with the people that believed in me, because they hadn't even seen me play at Glastonbury, and they were like, we want to kind of back you.
Yeah.
A lot of the other labels have waited for a while, and I thought, you know what, like I think that's like a really credible kind of.
Yeah.
I like that about a label and about the people.
Yeah.
So that's partly why I kind of decided to go with Decca, because I think the loyalty and the confidence in me was really important to know that early on.
Yeah, they're a great label. I mean, they've got such a an immense catalogue of artists as well, and they've always been great for me. I mean, I've done quite a few interviews with them. They're fantastic. So yeah, you chose wise, but yeah, I can see why, because of the loyalty. They wanted you before you even performed at Glastonbury. So yeah,
Yeah.
that's impressive. I just ask you did you tour with Keane? Was it last year? Was it Keane?
Yeah, so we did the Keen, the UK tour
Mm,
in September last
mm,
year.
yeah.
And that's pretty much at the point as well when Universal put their offer in, and then we signed just after then. But yeah, we did the UK tour 2 nights at the Royal Albert Hall, so it was yeah,
Wow.
that was a bit of a wake up call for me.
Different pub, yeah. Bigger than a pub.
Yeah. More than a couple of men at the back, anyway. Telling me not to quit the day job. So, yeah.
No, because I interviewed I think I interviewed Richard from Keene not long ago.
Oh, really? Yeah.
He's a really nice guy. He come across really well, and people that have listened to it said he's I mean, I guess you've got some. You've obviously met the band, and they are really nice guys. So yeah. So what's the? I know obviously we're getting back to some sort of. Well, we were getting back to some sort of slow normality. And obviously
Yeah.
current things may be going the other way again. We don't know. What is planned then with the label about, obviously I know the track's out tomorrow, because obviously it's today, September the 10th. Tomorrow is the 11th when the track's released. What have you got penciled in, because obviously you can't go on a tour. Yeah. What have you got planned?
Well, we've got an EP planned, which I think is coming out hopefully late October, November. Which is really exciting. So we've been doing a lot of recording, like a lot of like mobile kind of remote recording. Obviously now we've just about been able to start doing some actual proper studio recordings with like social distancing and stuff, which is fine. So I mean we're always recording, which is great. And I like to, with this sleepwalking track that's coming out tomorrow. So we recorded this in an Airbnb, just on like a dining room table.
Yeah.
Because there were no studios or anything involved at all. So I think like maybe this is probably something you haven't heard before, but like I mean, inspiration wise, I prefer maybe slightly unconventional like settings. So for me, I think like I love going to a studio, but I feel a lot more inspired and a lot more creative by kind of doing things a little bit more unconventionally. So I do a lot of kind of these like Airbnb things where me, Sam and Em, who we produced this Sleepwalking together, we basically go away for a week and stay in an Airbnb, set up on their dining room table, and then just do as many songs as we can within the time that we're there.
Yeah.
So we work until like 5 a.m. usually every night, which is like my normal hours anyway. So it's not like
Jesus.
But the other two, are sort of falling asleep at the table and stuff. But so we tend to work really intensely for sort of like 17, 18-hour days, really like trying to get all of the hours in, working the night and just kind of creating whatever we can with what we've got. And that's so that's how this song basically happened. So we're doing a lot of kind of those sort of things still at the moment, just because I find that I get the most out of them. So we're still recording, looking for the releasing the EP in the next sort of month or two, I think. So so that's the kind of the current plan, but always kind of writing and recording. Anyway, so yeah.
So you just mentioned right, your normal hours are up till 5 a.m. When do you sleep then? Do you sleep like? I'm obviously you're awake now because obviously I think it's what 3 o'clock, something 3:30. Do you are you one who only need? And it's like a silly question, but do you sleep a lot? Do you have like a few hours? Is that what you?
No, I've got like terrible insomnia. It's awful. Yeah.
Really?
But I mean, I would go to sleep. Usually, I would be asleep by about 5:30. I think last night was probably about 6 a.m. Usually, but and then kind of if I've got nothing to do, which is very rare, then I'll have a little sleep in. But and then kind of my emails would probably be kicking off by about 10:30 anyway. So yeah, so I just creatively, that's my window of like where things are happening. The only frustrating thing is being in London in a flat. I grew up in Hastings, and my parents' house, you can kind of make as much noise as you want, whereas in a flat you've got to be obviously considerate of the neighbours and things like that. So the nights are a bit quieter than they once were in terms of like creativity, but I'll usually be sort of writing or doing ideas or doing sort of, planning things like in the middle of the night usually.
Wow. I go off on another tangent, but I interviewed Alice Cooper, the rock legend.
Oh, yeah.
He's the same. He told me he only has like 4 hours sleep and he doesn't go to bed so late. So I'm thinking maybe it's a thing with songwriters, musicians. They get their best work, early in the morning. I don't know. And just, the inspiration when it's quieter and they can just, zone out and then pick up some sort of tune in the head and some lyrics.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, to be honest, I think it must be a creative thing because, and I know that's sort of like a big cliche. And I don't really know, but I know that a lot of people that I speak to feel the same. And I know my parents don't understand it at all. So I feel as though it's one of those things where whenever you explain it to people, a lot of people are sort of like, I don't get that. Or, I've often said to my dad, it's just, we're going to have to move out because I can't make noise in the middle of the night. And he's like, well, just get up earlier then. And he's like, I can't.
Yeah.
What do you mean you can't? Like you could, and I'm like, no, I can't. You don't get it. I can't. And he's just like, well, you can. And I'm like, no, I can't. And it's just sort of like, I don't know. Maybe it's a creative thing. I don't know what it is. I mean, I if we weren't on Zoom, these blinds would the natural light for me. I'd have them all shut. It'd all be shut. It'd be a bit darker. So, maybe we just don't like sunlight. I don't know. I don't know what it is.
Is your girlfriend the same? Do you just drive her crazy with all the blinds shut, or is she like you?
I feel for her, mate. I do. I mean, she's a writer and she plays keys and for me and does all the BV arrangements and co-produces. So like she's equally a creative, but I think she's got a bit more of she's got no choice really. We're up together. But I probably drive her mental. She's probably just being really lovely and just like pretending it's fine and that she's all right with it. But I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I think I know a lot of people like the night, but I think maybe my hours are slightly more extreme than other people.
Yeah.
I think going to sleep when people are waking up is a bit abnormal. Going to sleep at 3:30. I think I know a lot of people that are very similar to me in that sense, where they prefer to work at night or they're working on something and it's going really well. They think, well, why stop? I'm going to keep going. Whereas for me, it's sort of like I like to be up at night. And that's kind of when things happen. But I think when it's got to like 6 and the light's coming in, it's sort of like maybe that's a little bit excessive, but I don't know. It seems to work creatively for me, and so I kind of think, well, we'll just go with it. And if that's where the best kind of results are coming out, then great, I suppose.
I agree, Maureen. But the only thing is you got to worry about is when you start doing like radio interviews on like Radio 1 in the morning or BBC TV or whatever, and ITV, TV shows. They're obviously early, so you're either going to stay up all night or you're going to have to get some sleep, Be a lot of coffee, I reckon. Unfortunately, I don't really like drinking or anything, so it's not even like I can can't really have a few drinks and keep me up, or I just have to kind of hit the flat whites hard, I think. That's probably what I'll have to do. Well, I know from when I did the Keen tour, actually, that Tom and the rest of the guys, they were up kind of doing breakfast TV at like 7 a.m. Yeah.
I just thought that's. I mean, I'd still be up, so it'd be fine.
You'd still be up,
I'd still be up. It wouldn't be a problem. By the time that we've got to like travel there, I'd still be going at 6. So probably works out quite well, actually.
Yeah, because I know sometimes you got to be there for 5 a.m. if you're on like your 7. So you'll be fine.
I'll be in my peak actually at 5.
One thing I've got to say is I love your hair. I've got really thick hair, but I'm a lot older than you, so I won't go bald. It's under the family. But your hair reminds me of mine when I was for your age. You're half my age, so it's really thick. I just love it. But Where do you get your ideas for your style from?
Well, hair-wise, so
Yeah,
my mum's half Jamaican,
okay.
which has done me a lot of favours in the hair department because it's
Yeah.
nice and curt. There's no,
Yeah.
I have actually been asked a couple of times if I had a perm, so I feel that it's necessary now to just confirm that I haven't. I never thought I'd be spending sort of so much time telling people that I haven't.
A perm.
Yeah, no, I haven't had a perm. Yeah.
Okay, now I've not heard that first since the 80s.
So yeah, I think it's probably quite. If I'm sort of, I like to wear lots of like shell suits. To be fair to the public,
Yeah.
it probably is a bit. They probably think, well, maybe it's all part of the aesthetic, and you've got very straight. I mean, no, it is. It's very very much natural.
Yeah.
I don't know. Actually, well, I wear odd socks or odd shoes and stuff, which I'm sure you've.
I've seen a few.
You've seen. Which, to be honest, I'd love to say that it was sort of like a branding like concept, but it wasn't at all. I genuinely, this is years ago now, so I have been doing it for a while, but years ago I couldn't find a matching pair of socks, and I had a gig, and I wore an odd pair of socks, but because I roll my trousers up quite high, obviously they were like fully on display.
Yeah.
And after this gig, everybody was sort of like talking about it.
Mm.
And then I did the next gig because I've got a lot of kind of long-standing loyal fans as well, so they all come. Next gig was just wearing my normal sort of like white socks, and they just were absolutely horrified. Like genuinely, they were like, what's happened to the socks? I was like, what do you mean? I was like, well, where have the odd socks gone? I said, well, I didn't mean to wear them. It was an accident. Like, I wasn't doing it on purpose or anything. And so from that point onwards, I just thought, well, it's obviously, I quite like it. It's obviously a thing. I had lots of pairs of like the same trainers, so I thought, oh, maybe I'll sort of do the same thing. But yeah, I mean, like most people, I've kind of changed my style over the year. I never thought that I would be in a position where it was kind of like a big deal anyway. So I was just doing it for myself. I really enjoy kind of fashion and like vintage shops and all that sort of thing. And I think coming from Hastings and not London, I think it's quite, maybe not so much now, but before, I was shopping in charity shops when I was at school, and when it was embarrassing, and when I was like, the years where I would hide behind my mum because I spotted somebody from my class. But back when it was like, it's weird to think that there was a time where that was like really not a thing, where
frowned upon, wasn't it, in a way?
Oh, massively. Everything was like, really, you'd be going in there if you couldn't afford clothes, and that was it. And it wasn't for like fashion purposes. And unfortunately, as much as I wouldn't have minded that, the stereotypes around what charity shops used to be and what vintage shops weren't, not in Hastings anyway. Maybe if you lived in Brighton or London, it had moved with the times a bit more. But so and then I just kind of remember that there was a turning point where actually other people were going, oh, I got this from a charity shop, and I was like, oh, well, I've been doing this for years and I've been hiding. there I was hiding, thinking that I was, like a bit of a loser, and actually, you probably would have thought I was really cool. So I've like missed out on years of like being cool, basically. But yeah, I've always, I guess I've always looked different. I mean, I look like a 15-year-old boy when I'm actually a 24-year-old girl. So I'm all fucking dude. But like, I mean, you'll be the only one then. I mean, that's what I mean. Nobody, I'm not. I think that actually the lamp's doing me a favour, because I think
that's why I'm saying it.
It's bringing out the feminine.
You let yourself down. You've let yourself down with the lamp.
Yeah, I think it's bringing out the sort of the feminine qualities. I think this looks aesthetically quite female in here. Because M's designed it, not me.
Yeah, it is beautiful.
But yeah, I've looked like this for as long as I can remember. I enjoy kind of like wearing what I want to, kind of looking different, and that's kind of I think for me, like, that's never been like a negative. I think, and as a result of that, I don't think anybody has ever. It's never been a problem to anybody.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas it, maybe could have been. So so I just really enjoy kind of like I think that fashion is a massive part of like expression, and I think it's sort of like one of the only ways really that you can actually fully express yourself how you want to. Kind of come across really. And I think as long as you're dressing and looking aesthetically like at how you want to look for yourself, then that's kind of what's most important to me. So yeah, so there was a stage where I started straightening my hair because I thought that it was a bit weird that I had curly hair and nobody around me did. And I sort of found myself feeling quite unhappy about it. So so I think I've learned, I mean, I'm 24 now, so I'm not young anymore, but I think I've learned that actually, like, all that really matters is just being happy in yourself. And wearing and looking how you want to look, and that's kind of I guess that's what has inspired the the hair and the fashion. It's just this is kind of what I quite like, and so. So I'm at a point where I feel like I can just do it, and it's not, I'm not at that self-conscious stage that maybe I once was as a younger person, which I think we all are.
Yeah, when you said about you look like a 15-year-old boy, I can sort of see that, but because I've been speaking to you now for more than half an hour, I can see through that. Do you know what I mean? But I don't judge anyone by anything. If they're happy, you can wear what you want. You just got to be happy in yourself. If you're happy, that's the most important thing. But the pink lampshade above did.
I think it's helping.
That's massive. You got your pink on your collar. I was thinking,
I do think I mean, look, I'm what I like is the fact actually that this interview hasn't been focused around that, and a lot of the time it's a kind of like often more of a selling point than the music, and that is it.
Really?
Great. Yeah.
No, it doesn't cross my mind. Didn't even, but no, I'm not for that. I'm just having a great chat with a great person, because I did my research on you, and everyone who said they met you said you're lovely. So and I can vouch for that. I mean, I've actually really enjoyed this. We haven't spoken much about music, I guess. Well, we have, but we've gone off on. But we could talk all day. But no, I'm just glad that you said that. Like I say, I don't want to just go down the path of what you just sort of mentioned. But no, I'm not. I'm more about the person and stuff. So can I just ask you one last question, because I know you're as precious, and well maybe it's not.
I'm having a nice time. Carry on.
No, I'm glad you are. Me too. Who inspired you musically? We can get back to the music sort of thing. Who's your biggest inspiration musically? When you're growing up.
So I'm sure you've done some research. I'm sure you know that I was heavily into sport.
Yeah, I know about the badminton. We'll talk about that. Do you want to talk about that now first?
Well, I was the reason why I brought it up is because I've spent so many years not really listening to it. So I didn't take up music till I was 16.
Okay.
So I'd never done anything. I loved listening to music, obviously, like everybody does. But I had like an entirely kind of sport-focused childhood. That was the end goal, and so I kind of I musically I didn't listen to a lot of music. So I think that leads me on to say that in terms of inspirations growing up, I'd have to say like my parents were, to be honest, because it just in the sense of like that's kind of like the only. I didn't grow up in like a musical background. My dad plays a bit of guitar and plays a bit of bass now and loves it. And my mum's an amazing dancer. She's not a dancer, but she's an amazing, typical kind of like Jamaican kind of like disco, like an amazing, loves all that sort of like Luther Vandross and Stevie Wonder. So I think I was brought up on really great kind of taste and influences. In the car on the way to badminton tournaments and stuff, we'd always have really good music. But I never had like headphones and stuff like that, which I think was really weird actually as a child, because I think all of my friends kind of listened to a lot of music and I didn't.
Okay.
But then kind of like as I stopped playing badminton and kind of started taking up music and started sort of writing and things like that. I guess there's a do you know the jazz singer Leanne Carroll that's from. Have you heard of Leanne? I'm not sure. She plays with Ronnie Scott's, regularly, and she's in the jazz world. She's quite famous. But,
okay, no, I'll be honest. I don't. I know Gregory Porter, but that's probably where my I interviewed Gregory the other week, so that's why I know Gregory Porter very well. But I don't know her. No, I will look into her.
Yeah, no, definitely. So she's she's very well renowned kind of, but she's very jazz. She's not commercial. She's a jazz singer, and so. She lives in Hastings, and she was kind of like always the the legend of Hastings. You know, like everybody knows Leanne, and we're all kind of have always been so grateful that she was from our town. And I think inspiration-wise, going and watching her sort of like every week she played at my local wine bar, and to watch someone of that caliber was kind of like, I think it just gives you a lot of faith that you can, because coming from Hastings, you know, now it is so creative, and there are so many amazing people that have come out of Hastings. But when I was younger, it was known a little bit more as like, you know, the sort of like the deprived seaside town, you know, where there were loads of underage pregnancies, and I never got that vibe from Hastings.
Okay.
Until you speak to people outside and they're going, oh, you live in Hastings. Oh yeah, you know, like it's quite deprived there, isn't it? And you sort of think, I didn't think it was, but actually that's kind of the stigma behind it. But now over the years it's become, you know, a lot of people from lots of different places, creative people, have moved down to Hastings.
Okay.
And it's become incredibly creative. So yeah, so I spent a long time kind of like growing up on the music scene, because my parents like watching music. My mum likes dancing, so we'd go and watch, like, you know, all the pub bands and people like that. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess like I could easily say that a lot of people like, you know, Stevie Wonder and Michael Jackson, Luther Vandross. So I am inspired by them, but I actually think that I've definitely been more inspired to get where I am today by like
someone local
musicians and by my sort of parents, because you know that's kind of where I thought, like, I don't know, is that probably not really a very good answer, is it?
No, I think it's because they're within, she's within touching distance, i.e. she's from your town, and you like her music, so it's, whereas if you say something like Michael Jackson, Stevie Wonder, they're up there, you know, they're from America.
Yeah, of course, and it feels, you know, it feels so distant, and it feels, especially for me, like, you know, I didn't grow up kind of pursuing music. I didn't grow up like singing. I didn't grow up kind of thinking that I'd ever be in that industry. So I think that transition happening at like 16, 17 is quite later, you know, it's late for someone to start.
It is, yeah.
You know, start gigging. And I think there were a lot of local covers bands that kind of like would let me get up and do their interval, for example. So they would do, you know, 2 45-minute sets, and in the break, I'd do a little, you know, little 3 songs or whatever.
Yeah.
And that to me, like, you know, and the reaction to, you know, I hadn't done gigs before, I hadn't done whatever before. So I think, yeah, I think that to be honest, even if it's not the most desirable answer, it's still the truth, and I'm very honest. So,
no, that's what we want, or what we want, what the viewers and, you know, and the people reading this, when I write this up as well, will want honesty, and that's what's the most important thing from anybody, whether it be an artist or a bricklayer, you know, honesty.
Yeah, I think I'm, you know, like about a year into kind of doing a lot of that, I sort of started like a small covers band with I briefly went to a music college in Bexhill for about a year.
Yeah.
Because I didn't really know how you got into music, and my dad sort of found it and met a friend there that was a good player, and we kind of, you know, have been asked to do this like little party, and my dad played a little bit of guitar, and like he had a friend that could play the, you know, we were all technically terrible, you know.
Yeah.
But when, you know, my friend from college, who was actually a really good player, my dad was like, you know, there's no point in me playing the guitar because your friend's a lot better. Why don't I learn the bass? You know, that was something that we could just do.
Wow.
And so, you know, learned how to play like literally like the root note, like, you know, like 4 notes on the bass to do this. And then we spent years like as a 4, you know, I mean, we were really, in the grand scheme of things, like, we all know that we weren't very good technically or musically, but we spent years, you know, doing the sort of like the function scene, and we had just a huge following because, you know, everybody loved the fact that it was sort of like, you know, father and daughter kind of were in the same band.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's kind of where a lot of my influences, because they didn't start until I was a bit older. So I didn't have all of these influences from a young age because I wasn't really into music.
Right, okay.
All of my influences kind of started, you know, all of these experiences. All the things that I did when I first started, I was way too soon. You know, I used to go busking, and that was fine because that was, you know, like a learning your trade sort of thing. And then someone said, "Will you do my wedding?" And I just said, "Yeah." Actually, they said, "Do you do weddings?" And I went, "Yeah." I'd never done a wedding in my life, like. But you know, like you sort of at that age, you sort of you do what you need to do, and so like all of the experiences and all of the things that I did for the first year or two really were a bit premature.
Okay.
And so through that, I think that's kind of how I gained all of this kind of like inspiration, and all of the influences came from maybe those experiences.
Yeah.
And just even, you know, doing your first wedding and people saying, you know, like, here's a list of songs that we want, and you kind of think, oh, okay, so that's what people want to listen to at weddings. And you know, like that's kind of how I started to learn and to be influenced by people, and probably through playing those songs, and probably not from not being good enough technically on the guitar at that point to play the songs how they were meant to be played.
Okay.
Doing my own versions of them.
Yeah.
And people would say, oh, you know, I love your sort of rendition of whatever. And I'd be like, oh, you know, people like the way that I'm playing it actually. And that's kind of, I think that's how it sort of developed, and that's how the influences and the inspiration behind my writing, you know, learning how other people have written and what chords they've used. And I think that's probably where it all started to come from, I think.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I mean, you've. I have to say, I've really enjoyed this.
Oh yeah, me too.
It's been great. I was a bit nervous at first because I don't know why. It's just because I don't know. I was just nervous because normally when you can sort of I spent so much time researching you the last couple of days.
Yeah.
I feel okay now, but I was a bit nervous at first, thinking, "Oh, I've got to, somebody new and stuff like that." But no, it's been well. But so the singles, when the video is going to be loaded tomorrow, which is release of Sleepwalking. So, in a nutshell, as a last question, can you describe the song to anyone who's to end off the interview? Describe the song to you, or sorry, not in a nutshell. Explain to someone why they should buy the song, and what they should take from the song.
Okay, good question. Well, I suppose it's. So I personally, despite the fact that I wrote it with Jamie, I really love it. I think it conveys a really current situation perfectly. I think it's one of my best summaries in terms of like, I think I've actually really managed to kind of summarize a situation that we can all relate to, or we've at least all experienced, because I know for a fact, even though I'm not currently in that feeling, I've definitely experienced kind of like that whole coexisting, kind of just like floating around, being happy, being unhappy at the same time, and not being able to work out sort of like whether this is the right thing or not. And I think this is one of those songs where I think I've really managed to kind of like capture that feeling. And I think if you're looking to kind of listen to something that you can really relate to at a time like this, I think personally that's a really good representation of what a lot of people are feeling right now, and what a lot of people have felt in the past. So I hope that I hope that if there are people out there that are wondering, is it normal to feel like this? Which I think, I can actually really relate. I'm not gonna kind of pretend that I wrote this song about a current personal experience, because I didn't. That would not be true. But I definitely wrote it with experiences that I've had myself previously in the back of my mind, and knowing that actually I have felt like this. And I think I definitely never knew whether it was kind of, is this normal, or what do you do when you don't feel happy but you don't feel unhappy either? What does that mean when you just sort of feel content? Is contentment okay? I don't know. There's always that stigma of the grass is greener. Is it? Or actually, should I be grateful for what I've got? And it's just, when writing it, the last, really, I think everything else came. The whole story came before the sleepwalking bit. Most of the other parts of the song were written, and it was almost about finding that like one word that was like, well, so how do we bring it all together? What are we talking about here? And I just remember Jamie sort of saying to me, it's like you're sort of like like you're like asleep, but then you're not asleep, and we were both sort of like sleep, you know, like sleepwalking. So yeah, so I don't know. I mean, I'm a bit shit with self promotion really, because I think it's a bit tough. But I think BBC introduced and played it last night, and I listened to it, and I tried to listen from like a audience perspective, as if I wasn't the artist. And I thought, oh, actually, do you know what? Like, I feel really happy with this as a piece of music. I think it's kind of, if I was listening to it, I would think, oh, you know, that's so true. Like that really represents like a feeling that I felt before, and like. I think it's important that I don't know. I just think it's really important that when we're like feeling a certain way, that we can almost like, because no one ever asks like why. We often just, you know, I'm a big sort of believer in like, we'll ask the question, you know, like why am I feeling like this? And I think hopefully that song allows you to break it down, but in a way where you haven't got to think too much within yourself. You can kind of listen and think, I get it now. And hopefully that's enough to just be able to understand it from a piece of music.
That makes
I
sense.
hope anyway, you know.
Thank you for that. You know, but you know, when I asked the question before, I said, you know, what do you want? Why should people buy it? You know, I always ask that, throw that a little bit in, because some people might say financial reasons, but you didn't once mention, you know, anything about making money, which just shows your honesty. You know, that's because you got your passion for your music. You know, that sums you up. You know, you're I can't think of the word. You're a warm sort of person. You know, you're passionate about your music and what other people should think of your music, rather than thinking about anything financial. But you did say you shit yourself promotion, so maybe another year you might be different.
To be honest, the one thing that I know is that I remember the time when music went from a hobby to a job, and I remember what happened to me at that point, which is that I became incredibly unhappy. And I had a long period of like a couple of years where I didn't want to do it anymore, and I couldn't work out why, because I knew that I loved music. I thought it was the music, and I was convinced that it was like, you know, I don't want to do music anymore. You know, I didn't know if it was like a maybe expressing myself was causing me emotionally to kind of have like a breakdown, or whether talking about topics that were difficult for me I didn't know. I couldn't work it out, and I suddenly realized, oh, hang on a minute, it's because if I don't go and play this gig for £200, I can't pay my rent. And that's the problem. I don't want to go to this gig because I have to, and it's not about the music or the fans or how people feel about me and my music anymore. It's about the fact that I've stopped work, because I had a lot of, you know, normal jobs. I loved, you know, I used to manage a lot of coffee shops. I love coffee, but I have like an actual, you know, a real passion for coffee. I absolutely love it. You know, like really, the only financial gain for me would be that I can open a coffee shop. That would be great. You know, like, but you know, I had all of these jobs that I was really passionate about and that I loved and that paid my rent. And then at the end of the week, I used to be so excited about, you know, the one gig that I had of the month where I was going to play all the covers that I'd learned or all of my own songs that I'd been writing. And that just went, the minute that I quit my real job, and I was reliant upon music to keep me alive and to survive. I just started absolutely almost like resenting it, and that's just it. And thankfully, it happened at an age where I was a lot younger, and it was fine, and it was good for me. And it's important to kind of like to have a meltdown and put the guitar in the case in the attic and realize that you can't leave it alone for more than an hour before you have to go and get it down and you feel stupid again. But like, you know, those kind of experiences to me, you know, like I'm very much make a mistake once, don't do it again. That happening was important, but I think, you know, like if success comes with it and it's financial success, then, you know, I can go and open my coffee shop, and I can go and do things, you know, I can go and do things that I want to do that actually are probably really unexpected things, and I'll go and, I don't know, go and have ice skating lessons, you know, so something I quite like to be really good at that, but I can't really afford it or whatever. But if not, then that's not why I'm doing this anyway. It's not the point. And I think I also think, like you just said, the public often I think, how am I going to word this well? I think people often think that the public are more unintelligent than they actually are. I think people we're all very intelligent, and the public really are the most important people, and they know when it's not real. Like I think, like you said a second ago, I think like it's really important to be honest in this situation. And I think people know, you know, like if I've written a song and it's not personal, there's no point in me saying that it is, because people know. Because you can't fake the emotion. You just can't. It's not possible. But you know, we're not that good at like, you know, like I can put a voice crack in every song, but that's really hard to do that. You know, it is. It's I'm not, you know, like from a artist perspective, it's really difficult to pretend. And I think, like we were talking about earlier, I know that when I've recorded songs when you record old songs, it's really difficult, because when you felt a certain way about something and you recorded it in the moment and it was like a demo, people always say you get demo-itis. You don't get demo-itis. What you get is true emotion. Right. that's what it is. And people always, it's not as good as the demo. It's not that it's not as good as the demo. It's that it was real then. Yeah. And it's not real anymore.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
And so I think you know, we as people, we like as artists, you can't fake emotion, and people do see through it. And I think it's really important just to be like true to the music. Yeah. And not if there's any other kind of like, if you want something greater from it that's not a creative thing, then I think that people, and definitely myself, I'd be better off getting that from somewhere else. Yeah. And so if I ever came into any financial troubles, I would much prefer to go and work, you know, back at a care home like I used to, and use that as my way of covering, like the way that you know, we all need a roof, we all need to be fed, you know, when your passion becomes your only way of surviving, I think that's a really difficult point to handle as somebody who's passionate about it. And I think that's when it can all go a little bit wrong. And I think that's why it's important for me to not focus on those things. Yeah. And they will come, I'm sure. You know, I'm sure I'll invest in a nicer lamp.
No, it's we started on the lamp, we ended on the lamp, and I just think it's great. I can't stand coffee. That's one thing I will say. I'm a tea person. I
love tea. That's all right. That's all right.
Okay, you put tea in the coffee shop as well. You know, if you can do such a thing. I don't know, but no. I've really enjoyed talking to you. We've run over which is good. I knew we would anyway. So
no, it's great. Thank you. So it's been a really sort of bit of a different interview, actually.
Thank you. And I try to be like that. So yeah, but no, thank you for your time. I really do. And I'll come and see you in concert at some point when.
Yeah, I'd love that. That'd be brilliant. Yeah, we should keep. Has somebody got your email address where I can contact you?
Yeah,
Nicole.
Yeah, Nicole. Yeah, of course it is. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, she's got. Yeah. I had to think then. Yeah, Nicole's got everything. Yeah, she.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's keep in contact, and the next thing that's coming up, you know.
Yeah. No, it's been good talking to you. Yeah, honestly, it's been great. It really has. And it's like we've known each other for years. So, but no.
Yeah, it's been brilliant.
But no, tell your missus I love the decor. Amazing.
I'll tell her. She'll be happy with that.
No, it's amazing. It really is, and no doubt people will see it. Well, they will see it anyway. So, but no, but nice. Well, no, we'll stay in touch, and I've got to shoot now, and I've got my daughter from school bus. So that's why I'm.
No problem at all. Well, thanks, Carl. It's been great. Yeah, really, really good.
Oh, I'm okay. Well, I'll speak to you soon. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Cheers, mate. And you. Bye bye. Bye bye.